having completed last September 33 years as its president. Last year, and in many years before that, various neighborhood councils, we are stakeholders of 5 neighborhood councils in the greater Hollywood area, 4 of which will help fund our annual Children's Festival of the Arts, which we hold this coming year will be the 30th year. We hold it at Paramount Pictures. It is a totally free, non-commercial event open up to our community. But I come before you, as I said, as a place of last resort, still seeking the funding that was granted to us by the Studio District Neighborhood Council last year and the Central Hollywood Neighborhood Council last year. The funding was approved for the Central Hollywood Neighborhood Council in June, and the same in the Studio District, $2,500 from the Central Hollywood and $500 from the Studio District. We have made repeated requests. We have filed paperwork over and over. The last time, as I understand it, was in a new change was put forward, and so the paperwork that was submitted last year was no longer accepted, so we had to resubmit in order to get funding, which still hasn't come forward. I have copies of our last year's brochure of the Children's Festival. About 4,000 of our constituents and your constituents attend this free festival. I also have just a copy of from our executive director of some of the correspondence and the emails that she's had with Dunn. That I have one copy, and possibly General Manager Liu would look that over. We're coming up on our 30th. It will be on August the 9th this year. We'd certainly like to see that funding comes forward, comes to us as promised more than a year ago. Thank you so much.
Thank you. William Koosman, Glenn Bailey.
Good evening, commissioners and employees of the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment and City Attorney. You know, a lot of speakers said things tonight, which was really great, so it's going to save me some time. The first thing I notice is on your speaker's card it says this is a public document. I'm assuming when you say it's a public document that may be subject to a Public Records Act request. If a neighborhood council has one of these, it needs to be kept for the record. If it is not kept for the record, then that legislative body is not complying with the record-keeping requirements of the state of California. I made some public records requests recently of a neighborhood council dealing with a land use issue, and one request was made 4 days after the meeting for speaker cards and for the sign-in sheet, and also your sign-in sheet says that that's also a public record. I'm assuming you don't throw them away and that you keep them for a minimum of 2 or 3 years, whatever the code says it has to be kept for. But anyway, I asked for some more records. The day it was told these things were thrown away after the meeting and couldn't be provided to me. And so the next time it happened, I was supposed to get the record from the month before, couldn't get it. I've been offered to pay a fee and they'll mail it to me snail mail. Nobody's ever offered to email it to me. It's just one page. When I went to get it up, I was told I had to let him know 48 hours in advance that I was wanted to see it before he could show it to me. Seemed kind of ridiculous. So now here I am waiting yet another month after another meeting requesting the same thing, speaker cards, the sign-in sheet, the minutes of the meeting, which were taken by a stakeholder, so therefore they are not exempt public record when taken by a stakeholder, and I hope they understand that. So anyway, they were refused. All these things were refused. My inspection was refused. The neighborhood council has a special thing, says you're supposed to make that available as soon as possible. So I get this thing that, okay, the one thing that I didn't get 2 months ago, I can get at the meeting on the 16th if I give 48 hours notice in advance that I will be there 15 minutes before the meeting to inspect this one-page document. You know, this is 2 months. This is kind of silly. But guess what? I have to notify them 48 hours in advance, and guess what the last paragraph is on my response to this Public Records Act request. I'm getting closer so you can hear this. Please also note that due to the volume of emails received from you, your emails will no longer be opened or read and will be blocked. If you desire to submit any future Public Records Act request, you must do so in writing via the U.S. Postal Service and send the request to subject neighborhood council at such address. I'm sorry. There's something seriously wrong with this, and this is why you didn't get a sonnet tonight.
Glenn Bailey, Ivan Spiegel.
Glenn Bailey speaking as an individual on public comment on non-agenda items. First of all, to update you on the early notification service progress for neighborhood councils submitting their board meeting agendas. I'm pleased to report that from your last meeting, we are down to 1 in the entire city, and that's Park Mesa Heights. Commissioner Atkinson, maybe you can light the fire under them. Did email, so first of all, I know that the NEA, Teneda, Larios, I know that Tom Harvey had been in multiple contact with them even before I got involved. I emailed them every single email to every single officer from their website bounced back, except for the president because he didn't use their website email. I did get a reply from one of the board members who gave me their secretary and then forwarded my email. But you've got a problem with Park Mesa Heights, given the number of staff members over an extended period of time with multiple requests and myself. I even said I would show up at their meeting, and that didn't do any good. So anyway, it'd be nice to get this very last neighborhood council in compliance with the commission's agenda policy, and I'd seriously recommend, if they're not in compliance with July, that you impose the sanctions that are in your posting policy. It has been 1 year since it was revised. It's been 4 years since it was first put into place, and it's time to, if anyone deserved it, it seems like this is the one. So I strongly recommend that. I certainly will be watching myself, and I certainly will make that recommendation again for those third Saturday and third Tuesday meetings. So in my remaining seconds, I just wanted to comment with regards to your posting challenges for this meeting. This is deja vu. We had this same conversation at your Palms meeting in May by stakeholders, board members who didn't get notice except very shortly or not at all before your meeting. Exact same circumstance, not posted on the Empower LA website 2 months ago. So, and then of course last month at Cypress Park, board president said, hey, we didn't know anything about it, even though we were invited to come to a community meeting to, give feedback for best practices. And so I know that was done this time. Thank you, Commissioner Schaefer, for getting that out to the South Valley more than a week in advance. But the agenda and the packet, and that's how I got involved with this, is I was trying to find the backup staff reports yesterday. I couldn't find them because it wasn't posted on the Empower LA website. It wasn't posted at midnight, wasn't posted at 10 a.m. this morning. It got posted at some point in time today. But it's not just a one-time glitch. It is obviously an ongoing issue. And I will conclude with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ivan Spiegel, then Sharon Brewer.
Hey, good evening, commissioners. I'm speaking here as an individual tonight, and I'm going to basically do one thing. I'm going to implore you to do your jobs. Your job is not to deal with complaints. It's not to sit around talking. It's to set policy for the neighborhood councils. There are all kinds of problems out here, and it's because you haven't done your job. This is where it has to start. Some of the things that are going on out here, and you've heard about them before, several people talked about this one tonight. Minutes. There's nothing that requires you to take minutes unless you put it in your bylaws. This is unacceptable that a public body doesn't take minutes where their stakeholders can go and look and see what's going on at the meetings. You need to set a policy mandating that all neighborhood councils take minutes, and post them on their websites. You pass the code of conduct, there's no enforcement. Somebody violates it, what happens? Oh well, you need to set policy on how you're going to enforce this code of conduct. You threatened to remove board members if they didn't sign it, and now you haven't done your job by telling them they've signed it and this is what the penalties are. If you don't do that, then just get rid of it because it's meaningless. Training. We go out there, and those of you that have been around to councils, you've seen training. Where? The department did training for every neighborhood council when right after the elections. Well, since then, probably a third of the board members are new. People have left, they've been replaced. Who trains these people? There is a serious lack of training in neighborhood councils. You must pass some sort of policy mandating that the department do regular trainings for new board members. Last thing, we see things about money that would really turn your heads. It doesn't say anywhere in the plan or in the any of the city ordinances about how neighborhood councils should be spending their money. It doesn't say anywhere neighborhood councils are a piggy bank. It doesn't say neighborhood councils need to fund city entities that had their budgets cut. It doesn't say that in anybody's bylaws, yet you're allowing people to spend their money on whatever they want that has no relationship to what their core mission is, which is outreach. We saw council this week that's giving almost $20,000 away in NPGs, and they budgeted $500 for elections.
Thank you.
This is not acceptable. Please do your job.
Thank you. Sharon Brewer, Jay Handel.
First, I want to take and address a letter that neighborhood councils were sent February 17th, 2015, where to bring MERs up to compliance, and how like Encino was assigned Mario Hernandez at $31.68 per hour. What I want to talk about is that a custodial appropriation deduction for Apple One was made for Mario, and it goes and says that please bear in mind that since this amount was paid directly out of the neighborhood council's appropriation account, it will not show on the NC's transaction through Union Bank. Please use the date paid for your monthly expenditure report. We got charged $257.76 for 8 hours of his work. It was paid 4/1/2015. He's also doing Encino's MERs for March, April, and May. That did not show up on the MER that he ended up going and preparing himself. So I'm questioning, one, why a done employee is also doing the MERs where it's a conflict of interest, and why there's no record anywhere that this amount was taken out. It's not on the check tracking, and it's not on the bank statement. Why wouldn't it be on the bank statement for everybody to know? I wanted to talk about the check tracker going and showing a number of incomplete or non-action items that are listed. For Encino, it ends up that there's 13 that are listed that aren't showing what happened to them. With dollar amounts for Reseda, there are 7. Some of these I know have already been approved, but there's no backup for it. The NC profile, the cases solved. How are they solved? Are they approved? Are they denied? More information needed. Just a little thing, all NC funding issues sent to all board members, not just treasurer and second signer or president. One of the examples is the comment about the funding issue for the NPGs. Had the reason been sent back to all the board members, it would have been because the board vote count / request forms, funding request forms were filled out improperly. You don't put across where people write their name, see attached. So if all the correspondence is sent to all the board members, you wouldn't have a comment that was just made blaming the department.
Thank you. Jay Handel.
Good evening, everybody. Jay Handel. I hate to bring good news. It's really out of tone, but Budget Advocates had a great budget day. And since we're not on the agenda anymore, you must think that because the budget's done, we're not going to report to you. So put us back on the agenda, because we're asking every neighborhood council to make sure we're on the agenda every month so that we can actually give reports and everyone can know what we're doing. I think it would be really good for the commissioners to know what we're doing so they can go out to their neighborhoods and make sure their councils know as well. I want to thank all the commissioners who showed up, and I want to thank the staff for the work that they did. You know, it wouldn't have been the day we had without having all of the help that we did. Having said that, we had a bunch of commissioners go AWOL on us and not tell us that they weren't coming, except for one who did actually tell us he couldn't make it. And that was a little disturbing, quite frankly, because it left us in the lurch for having people running elections up in the meeting room. So I think that's something maybe you guys need to talk about, your housekeeping, how that's going to work in the future, and your involvement with budget advocates and alliances and neighborhood councils in general. Our first meeting, just so you know, is going to be the 18th, Saturday at the Flame Restaurant from 12 to 4. You're all invited to show up. Feed them and they will come. We thought that was going to work at the other one. It didn't work out so well. But you're all invited to come. I'm happy to report that we have 36 full on-board budget advocates. I'm not so happy to report that we have a bunch of different areas where neighborhood councils never assigned anybody. So we will be changing our bylaws probably at the first meeting, even though it's a scoping meeting for us. And our intent is to make it so that if a neighborhood council does not assign anybody, we're going to assign the president and treasurer. And by the time we inundate them with everything we will inundate them with, they will be probably motivated to assign 2 other people to read all those emails. So generally speaking, it's going to go well, and we're going to attack it head on. The meeting on the 18th will be a full breakout of all 36 so that we can get our mission, which way we're going, what the assignments are going to be, you know, and dig really deep in, because again, the budget is not in a wonderful place, as we know, and we know that from a staffing issue. So anyone who wants to come and chime in and talk about their districts and the things they know about the neighborhood councils in their area, because part of it will be the issues that we're dealing with in those areas as well. So we would invite all you to come. So thank you for your support. Thank you for all you guys do. It's no fun to come out in traffic, you know, to these meetings, but again, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so moving right along, and I'm going to suggest that we move item number 7 up. This is a discussion with various South Valley Neighborhood Council representatives who wish to, and it says report concerns, operations, and best practices. First, let me get, Commissioner Schaefer, do you want to say anything in the introduction of this item? I know that Commissioner Littman was going to add something here.
No, I'm just glad to see a nice turnout.
Do you want to say anything?
Oh, there was one thing. Well, thank you to staff, whoever on staff arranged for parking for the people who are coming tonight. I hope everybody from the South Valley got my email as to where you can park. So there you go.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Knack and Commissioner Schaefer. Yes, a couple of weeks ago, I think it was at the Palms meeting, there was an impassioned speech by Doug Fitzsimmons of the Soho Neighborhood Council about the overwhelming burden of paperwork coming from the department that Newbury councils have to fill out, and he used the questionnaire for the best practices that's on the agenda and linked here. It's just one example of the many reams of things we ask you to fill out. And so I've been looking at amending that, and I cut it down significantly, but then we realized that the department is really working on these reports that will kind of quantify many of the questions that are asked in the questionnaire. How many board members do you have? How many meetings do you have? How many stakeholders show up at your meetings? And rather than asking you to fill that all out, because the